Hey, TMG here. I am unexpectedly here yet again. I have recently been reflecting on the importance of story in Mario games, and I feel that this hasn't been properly discussed yet on the internet. So here I am, to share my thoughts with my 7 reoccurring viewers. If you're watching, you know who you are. Before we start talking about story in Mario games, let's define what story is. A story is a series of events with a setting, plot, characters, and conflict. A few weeks ago I was talking about the importance of story in Mario games with some people on the internet. The shared sentiment by many I was talking with is that the story is not important, and gameplay is what really matters. While I agree with this statement to a degree, I think the importance of story is taken for granted by many Mario fans. To dive deeper into this, let's compare the new Super Mario Bros. Series to the newest installment in the 2D Mario series, Super Mario Bros. Wonder. A lot of people have this misconception that the 2D Mario series died off after New Super Mario Bros. U because the New Super Mario Bros. Games are bad. This is not true. I have played all 4 of the New Super Mario Bros. Games, and they're all really great games. I believe what really killed off the 2D Mario series after this point was the lack of an original story. Let's look at those 4 key components of story I mentioned earlier. The setting for all the New Super Mario Bros. Games is basically the same. Even if you're exploring new lands in each of these games, grasslands, deserts, and icy plains all feel very familiar. The plot is almost identical in these games, with Princess Peach being kidnapped in all 4 games by Bowser, and Mario and friends having to travel through 8 worlds to save her. The characters are almost the same throughout the series. Mario and friends return, which is expected, but the Koopalings make a return in 3 out of the 4 games, which can feel redundant. Shout out to the originals and New Super Mario Bros. For having original bosses for the most part. And the conflict, which is similar to the plot, is the exact same throughout these 4 games, with a princess being kidnapped. Now let's compare this to Super Mario Bros. Wonder. The setting is fairly new and fresh, with new level types like Savannah, Swamp, Waterfall, and Factory themes. Despite this though, older themes like Grassland and Desert do return, which even though they kind of have a new take, do feel a tad familiar. The plot still involves Bowser, but this time he tries to take over the world by harnessing the power of the Wonder Flowers. Mario and friends have to travel through 8 worlds to stop Bowser. New characters are introduced, like Prince Florian and the Poplins. New playable characters are also introduced, like Princess Daisy and Yoshi. The bosses, Bowser and Bowser Jr., are quite familiar Mario enemies though, and do feel a tad familiar. The conflict, as I mentioned earlier, is that Bowser is threatening to take over the world with wonders. As you can see here, Super Mario Bros. Wonder isn't necessarily a completely original game in terms of story, but it still adds enough new ideas to keep things feeling fresh. Looking back at the Mario series, such as the original NES trilogy, and even the Super Mario Land games, I love how creative these games are and how willing they are to change things up. I don't know if we will ever quite see the creative flood of ideas that we saw back then, but Super Mario Bros. Wonder is a clear step in the right direction. It gives me hope that we will get to that point again, where almost every aspect of a Mario game is new and completely unique to that game. I agree that if you had to choose between gameplay and story in a video game, gameplay is more important. But don't let that trick you into thinking story isn't important, because story is a key aspect of the Mario series that is part of what makes this series so timeless. Hope you enjoyed the video. TMG out. Goodbye.